Hello, and welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is going to be a fun replay of Phantom Groves, the map, and the opponents are going to be Undead Elf, potentially map hackers. I don't know, but either way, they don't really get to exploit it too much on us in this game if they are map hackers. But regardless, me and Jake are going to be I'm MasterShamanXXL. I'm going to be Undead, and Jake is Orc GandolfsStaff14, with Gandalf misspelled. So, anyway, we're going to have a bit of fun. I think I've done this strategy before. You might have seen it, maybe not, but it's a pretty fun strategy. And it is going to be Stunlock, which means we're going to have a Tauren Chieftain, a Crypt Lord, probably some Tinkers, and hopefully some Witch Doctors, though I don't quite remember if Jake actually does make Witch Doctors here or not, but usually Witch Doctors. And yeah, so, and the opponents are of course going for a Fiend build with a Death Knight and a Hunt build with an early Ancient of Wonders and a Keeper of the Grove to just be sort of annoying with his harassment. So he's going to manage to snag one peon kill, but he's going to take a ton of damage on that Keeper, so you know, arguably worth it. A peon for a little bit of damage, but he should probably just go ahead and you know, sort of count himself lucky to get that peon kill and run, because he's in danger of, you almost got surrounded there, and he's not quite going to get the second peon kill. So, and he took a lot more damage there. So now he's at 200 hit points, and you know, he got one peon kill. Jake should maybe go ahead and salve that peon. Sort of easy to say in hindsight because I know the elf comes back, but generally, you know, you don't want to leave sort of weak peons around, just because like later if they come to attack, you know, Death Coil and Tangle can easily pick that off, but or even just skeletons. But regardless, we're going to be going together. I crept the two greens, the skeletons, and the wolf troll camp. Our blue actually went for the gold mine, and then he did these this wolf troll camp, which is going to give him slightly more experience and a better item, I do believe. I guess, well, Ring of Protection, Mantle of Intelligence items maybe are about the same, so, or actually, yeah, I think his item is technically the higher tier one, but it's not, you know, too big of a deal. So now me and Jake are going to creep together. We're going to creep this gold mine. The elf is going to come in here and keep harassing, which, you know, is decent. He gets like one peon kill. He might get another one, but in the meantime, our creeping is going to go, you know, just fine. I'm going to drop this Sacrificial Skull. I'm going to plan on towering and expansion. So we're going to have a battle here. The elf has only been making hunts out of one Ancient of War, and he's teching, and he's throwing out this Protector. So he's really, his army is really sort of undersized right now. He doesn't have a lot. He needs to definitely try to, you know, kite and hit and run. He needs to avoid getting stunned here. See, the problem with, well, one problem with the Keeper is he's really sort of low on hit points, and, you know, doesn't have a lot of hit points to begin with. 500 as compared to like 750 for us, or 725. So, you know, our stun spells and, you know, mass range fiends can sort of take that hero down pretty quickly, and, you know, they really just didn't have enough units to really try to hold a pitched battle there and fight us. So as you can see, it went really sort of, they traded a hunt for a fiend, and then the elf had to TP after taking a massive amount of damage on his Keeper. And so yeah, the elf is never really going to have a large army in this game, and the fact that I'm getting this expansion up is going to put us in a good position to just outmass them on fiends. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm throwing up a second crypt. My tech is going to be really delayed compared to the other undead and the elf even, but you know, usually one of the big reasons that Undead, you know, needs to tech early in games is it's a lot of times it's just really hard to get an expansion up, so you know there's no reason to delay your tech, you know, to try to expand. If you know if they're gonna be able to stop you from expanding, you know, it's just gonna end up being a weakness if you delay your tech and don't get an expansion. But if you do get an expansion in this particular matchup, the weakness is your delayed tech is going to mean you're not going to have a web as quick, you're not going to have burrow as quick, you're not going to have statues or second hero as quick. So, you know, that's going to be risky, but they're not, you know, Undead Elf don't generally make a lot of tier 2 air units against, you know, most strategies, specifically a bunch of fiends. So you're not really in danger of getting, like, you know, falling behind with anti-air. You know, even though they have 4 heroes, which is going to be sort of a strength here in a moment, you know, our heroes, you know, just having a massive fiend sort of mitigates how strong the keeper is. And again, you know, generally the elf is going to go Priestess of the Moon with undead massing fiends, just because of how strong that is sort of mid to late game. Once you get Dispel or just a massive units, the keeper's abilities really are they really sort of fall off in terms of impact later in the games. Though it did allow them to get a lot of damage on this Tauren Chieftain. And Jake is trying. He's trying. Boom with the stomp right at the perfect moment. He had 4 hit points, and he is going to get killed there. And the undead did get the kill. I was hoping Jake might try to like kill it with his own towers, but he did not. That would have been a pretty slick move, really a desperation move. But so I think the undead lost some fiends doing that, maybe, hopefully, to at least give us a little bit of a, you know, mitigating sort of counter to what they did. So, but anyway, the big thing is I've got this expansion rolling, so, you know, losing that Tauren was pretty bad news, but, you know, the undead had a TP. I think he lost a fiend. So, in the grand scheme, it wasn't that big of a problem. In the meantime, I'm going to get to creep. The elf is taking the tier 3, so dryads are going to be decent against the AoE stun spells, but the problem is they're not really a counter to anything we're making. So while they're not going to get just demolished by stun, as hunts could potentially, they're also not going to be doing a whole lot in terms of damage output. So, you know, unless they get in a scenario where like we're trying to run away and we don't have a TP or something like that. Or you know, maybe if I tried to like mass destroyers instead of mass fiends, or something like that, you know, whatever. But you know, honestly, you know, they're just not going to be that big of a deal, and he's not really going to mass them. He's actually going to switch to bear, so it only makes a few of them. But the other problem is, while bears are a pretty good unit to fight, you know, what we have, they're just as vulnerable as anything else to the AoE stun spells. So, you know, we're still going to have a good heroes to counter them. And notice the undead is running around with not a very large army. He's only got 4 fiends. He's got 2 statues and 2 heroes, but, you know, the lich is only level 1. And likewise for the elf, he's running around with a pretty small army, and we just have a mass of fiends and grunts. So, you know, and these, boom with the summit, boom with the impale, these are just nailing like half, you know, maybe even 80% of their like damage output with these stun spells. So, and then boom, stomped on the pow, you know, right in the kisser. You know, this is hilarious to me to watch this. All these units just flying around and just getting stomped is pretty fun. So, you know, if you've ever utilized this strategy effectively and gotten leveled up Crypt Lord and boom, right in the face there with these heroes, then you're gonna realize how fun it is once they get leveled up to just be able to hit. You know, if you get in good impales, it looks really funny and it's very effective. Same with Stomp. It doesn't look quite as funny, but you know, it's just as effective as impale if you get any good stomps. So, you know, and there's not really a whole lot they can do to counter this, you know, aside from make different units or avoid sort of pitched battles like that. And they just continue to make the bad decision to fight us with small armies and, you know, just the units all clumped together. See, that's one of the strengths of Undead Elf, and in a lot of strategies in 2v2 is going to rely on fighting together, pitched battles, especially Undead Elf. They're going to want to get their armies together and sort of try to throw their weight around, though they don't actually have a lot of sort of mass, so it doesn't quite work very well here. But you know, generally with Undead Elf, they're going to have a bunch of hunts, a bunch of fiends, and once mid-game rolls around, they're going to start trying to pressure and push. And against a lot of strategies, it's going to work pretty well because hunts and fiends together is a pretty solid combination. It counters a lot of stuff. It doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. With Unholy Aura, the speed is going to be decent for the hunts or for the fiends, and the hunts obviously already are pretty decent speed, so they're going to be, you know, even better with Unholy Aura in terms of getting around. The nuke spells as they level up are going to be really strong. True Shot Aura is going to be a pretty, it's a really good sort of offensive ability, and then, you know, either the Scout Owl or most likely Flaming Arrow is going to add in a lot of damage output. And the damage output of True Shot with Mass Fiends and Mass Hunts, it just gets ridiculous. Like, you know, once you get level 2 True Shot Aura and you have, like, you know, 10 Fiends, 10 Hunts, or whatever the count, the damage output, it gets, you know, the numbers don't sound that big, you know, maybe +4, +6, or whatever it is, but you know, you have to multiply that by like 20 units, or, you know, even 14, even 10, 14 units, and, you know, 4 times 10 is 40, 4 times, you know, 12, 20, you know, 4 times 20 is 80, so that's 80 damage of volley that you're adding from one ability. It doesn't cost mana. It's going to be affecting, you know, all the fiends, all the hunts, all the archers, dryads, whatever, you know, most of the units that the elf can switch to aside from bears are going to get that boost. And then if the undead adds in destroyers or frostworms specifically, boom with a stomp right on the head there. So and pow with the impale. But anyway, so with the frostworms, you know, once you add in +20, +30% damage to a frostworm, the numbers are crazy. It's like, I think it gets like plus, depending on how many upgrades you have, and, you know, level 2 or 3 True Shot Aura, you could be adding as much as like 25 extra damage or something from a frostworm. So, you know, that every attack from just a frostworm. Now for the other units, obviously you're gonna have to add that stuff up as well. But again, they took a battle right here that was just, you know, as we were watching it, I mean, it was just so one-sided. Spirit Link is really great with statues. You spread all that damage out, and sort of the weakness of statues is focus fire. If they're focus firing single units, individual units, or heroes, you know, while you have AoE healing, that individual unit is only going to be getting like a little bit of healing at a time. So, you know, rather than heal like, you know, 6 units for 10 or whatever it is, I don't quite remember the numbers, but, you know, you're only healing like 1 unit for that amount. So, you know, one way to mitigate the strength of statues is obviously focus fire, or just kill them if you get a chance, but it's, you know, positioning is not really working out for them to do that. So with Spirit Link, it prevents them from sort of countering the statues by focus firing, or, you know, generally people like to focus fire anyway with fiends. So, you know, Spirit Link is going to spread that damage out, and the statues are going to heal up everything really quickly. So it's going to act as a really good synergy with the statues. Now, you know, I typically like to have some Witch Doctors when I do Oracle this strategy, but, you know, we already have plenty of stun, and we're pretty much winning the game pretty handily here. They do get a Frostworm, but their statues are damaged. They don't have a big army. They do have bears, but again, at this point, it's like I actually am at tier 3 now, so I've got, you know, 2 slaughterhouses I can make destroyers. But, you know, the bears are just as vulnerable to the stun, and they're really more for tanking purposes. They do pretty good damage as well, but, you know, without a massive fiends behind them, you know, they're really just outmassed at this point. So, bam, smack. So, hopefully you enjoy these goofy sound effects that I'm making, and And yeah, another great impaler. So pew 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 with the rockets, and yeah. But anyway, so this is going, just terribly. He's trying to get in position with these bears, but it's like, getting in position with the bears pretty much forces him to run around with them all clumped together and just get, stunned over and over and over again. So, they don't really. There's not a lot they could do. Like mass destroyers maybe would have been mass destroyers and I guess mass destroyers and bear dryad or something like that, or maybe mass destroyers and mass fairy dragons. Maybe, I don't know. That's, it's kind of it would be really hard to pull that off against mass fiends. So they're, it's kind of pigeonholes them into doing, I mean, they were already just sort of doing the standard stuff, but the counters to the strategy are like magicka units and flying units, and fiends pretty much deal with flying units if you can mass them up like we did. Raiders to some degree, and Jake can just go ahead and get a couple of bat riders if really necessary to counter the air units, or wind riders. Either wind riders or bats would be a really strong unit against destroyers and fairy dragons. So, and then fiends themselves are pretty decent against those units. Maybe go for hippogriff riders, even though it's really weird. Because dryads, dryads don't really do it. They would have to like keep my fiend numbers down, which would have meant stopping that expansion, which they didn't really set up to do. So really it came down to them not stopping the expansion. I'm the only one that lost gold to upkeep. I lost quite a bit, 2,000. But that still put me, at 11,000 or so gold, which, or 10,800 or whatever it is, but still puts me slightly ahead of them. So yeah, that, it wasn't a giant sort of advantage with the economy, but what it did allow me to do is just continue massing through upkeep, and all those battles, we had a bunch of fiends, and they never really were able to sort of overcome that, and so, but they thought that they had to keep trying to overcome it early, which maybe it was a good idea for them to try, but they just weren't. They weren't able to do it. Like, and so if they would have just left us alone and tried to get a counter expansion, the elf definitely on their team should have. After the undead crept that expansion, he definitely should have expanded himself, because just to keep pace with us, like they could have kept us distracted from finding their expansion for a while. And the elf expansion, doesn't need towers per se to really be okay. It's easier to defend. The wisps are sort of safe and everything else. So inside the entangled gold mine, whereas the acolytes are not. So they had a couple of options there. They could have just like suicided into the gold mine and tried to cancel it, kill the acolytes, and really delay us that way. Maybe they could have did that. But the elf deciding to tech and go with one Ancient of War and a shop and sort of an Ancient Protector he was building that offensively that didn't really do anything. They needed to pick their timings better, and their strategies probably needed to pick them better. Just continuing to creep to level 3 before they pushed the undead to level 3, and the elf to have more mass, then to have 4 heroes, probably would have been a better timing. Just to wait a little bit and expand themselves, I think would have been much preferable to what they did, more effective, at least from their perspective. And yeah, so that's going to be pretty much their downfall. There's plenty of unit kills on our side. Again, the undead really is the one that gets the unit kills here, and probably the hero kills, just from having the expansion, the massive units, and the range damage units. The grunts really are just sort of there to tank, though they do okay damage as well. So all the army size is pretty much the same, except I was able to get up to 81 food, and fiends are really the sort of crucial unit there. Like I said, it wasn't a huge deal to delay my tech in that particular game, just because they don't have like tier 2 air units that I need to really worry about. You know, yeah, it would be nice to have statues and burrow and, you know, get that tinker out, but, you know, just having that extra, you know, 2, 3, 4 fiends, you know, makes it well worth it to wait. And then, you know, once, you know, being behind the undead, I'm not going to have the corruption orb quite as quick, which is a pretty strong item. And I don't know if actually their undead got it. I sort of assume he did, but I don't remember. But the other strength of undead at tier 3 is going to be frostworms and destroyers, or abominations, I guess, but which is probably something he should have looked into, since we, you know, for a while we were just having grunts and fiends. But, you know, it's really a lot of undead players, you know, they get that frostworm out, destroyer out, and they think, you know, okay, you know, these are really strong, but, you know, if you're looking at like 12 plus fiends with upgrades and, you know, statues and spirit link and all that stuff, you know, those frostworms or destroyers coming out are not nearly as threatening. You know, if it's a smaller army of fiends, you know, the frostworm is still going to be pretty strong when it comes out, because the slow effect, you know, you can't really counter that. It's really hard to counter that in battle, you know, once you get hit with it. If you have like Hex or something, that's really good to counter it, but otherwise, we didn't really have a, you know, if the army sizes would have been smaller, the frostworm would have been much more dangerous. But the fact is, we had so much range damage and web that, you know, he couldn't really kite us with the frostworm, and, you know, the piercing damage does extra to the frostworm, so due to armor type, so really worked out well. And yeah, this is just another example of Stunlock going really well. They kept taking battles that were to our advantage, and with an expansion, you just can't do that and hope to win. So I'll go ahead and end it there. If you want to, you know, subscribe, have some requests, want to do some games, want to call me a terrible noob, or, you know, whatever, or, you know, you like the audios, you like the replays or anything like that, you know, feel free to hit me up in the comments. You know, send me messages, or, you know, whatever you want to do. Pretty low on subscribers, so, you know, if you're gonna subscribe, that's cool. I'd be totally hyped up for that. And but anyway, this is ScryMind signing out.